Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Sa Blue Eagle kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay Atenista sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugod, todo sa kayod, dunong at tulog, lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting nagigil, blue and white, one big fight. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan.
Coming up next, Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Radyo Katipunan.
Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Blue Eagle kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay Atenista sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng kwela. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Kawal ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugod, todo sa kayod, dunong at tulog, lipat na Blue Eagle, galing giting nagigil, blue and white, one big fight. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan. Radyo Katipunan.
We all want to live healthier in mind, body, and spirit. But where do we start? Sometimes, all it takes is a good conversation. Tune in to Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Together with experts, inspiring guests, and real stories, we explore tips you can actually use. From managing stress, to eating better, to finding balance in a busy world. Because here, we believe wellness isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. So join us, and let's make every Wednesday a step toward your healthiest self. Wellness Wednesdays, wellness that speaks to you, from the body, mind, to might. Every Wednesday on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Hello, Wellness Seekers! Welcome back to another episode of Wellness Wednesdays, your midweek dose of balance and positivity.
Here on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM, we bring you wellness that speaks to you, from the body, mind to might. Every week, we explore tips, conversations, and stories that help keep your mind, body, and spirit in harmony. Welcome to the Office of the Guidance and Counseling's Coffee Stations with Your Counselors, where the warmth of a good brew meets the guidance you need.
We're here to chat, share, and support you through your college journey, one cup of coffee at a time.
So, grab your coffee, find a comfy seat, and let's dive into today's coffee session.
Hello, I'm Miss Faith.
And I'm Sir Matt. We are counselors at the OGC.
This is a special episode for us, Sir Matt, right?
That's right, Miss Faith. As you can see, we have a different format. We are remote and recording via Zoom. But aside from that, our episode today features one of the OGC's activities during the Wellness Fest last March.
Exactly, Sir Matt. And we are so excited to share that with you. So even if you missed the event, probably because you have your exams or it coincided with your Wednesday activities, you still have a chance to hear it because we recorded it live for you. So, Sir Matt, what is today's episode all about?
Glad you asked, Miss Faith. From the title itself, In the Flow, Conversations where Productivity Meets Well-Being. In this talk show, we're going to show you a couple of guests, not only to teach us skills and supply us with strategies on how to balance productivity with well-being, but also to share with us their personal experiences in tackling this challenge.
Correct, Sir Matt. I remember when we were conceptualizing this talk, we really considered what most of our students said they needed to hear more about. So you asked and we delivered, di ba, Sir Matt?
Yes, Miss Faith. So without further ado, let's play the video.
Right.
So may we invite our guests to join us here in front as we transition to the next segment.
Okay, for our first guest speaker, we have Ms. Karen Rose Vardelion Binayas, a registered psychologist and a co-founder of Child Fam Possibilities Psychosocial Services, or CPPS, from Quezon City, as well as the president of Lighter Loads Wellness and Consultancy in Binyan, Laguna. He graduated with an MA Counselling Psychology degree from the Ateneo de Manila University, an MA in Family Studies at Miriam College, and a BS Psychology degree from the University of Santo Tomas. She is a Psychological Association of the Philippines Certified Specialist in Counseling and Assessment Psychology, a licensed psychologist, and a licensed psychometrician. With 25 years of professional practice, Kay has served in the academic, clinical, corporate, and community setting. Her work to date includes guidance counselor for the University of Santo Tomas, counselor for Mater for Ugat Foundation, as well as consultant psychologist for the Center for Human Resources Asia, and Inspire Leadership and Consultancy. Kay is an active mental health advocate and ranked number 34 in the top 100 Filipinos to follow on LinkedIn for inspiration and learning for 2024. She also ranked 6th place in the board licensure for psychologists in 2016. So let's welcome Ms. Kay.
And to represent our student body, we have our guest student here. So Remy or Jeremiah Jose Remualdo is an AB Development Studies student. He currently serves as the president of the Ateneo Peers, the sole mental health org in the Ateneo, driven by the mission of helping others help themselves. As a certified peer coach of the organization, he has honed his skills in peer facilitation, peer mediation, and mentoring other peer coaches as well. Last academic year, he was a main coordinator who spearheaded the revival of the Mental Health Coalition, comprised of Ateneo Peers, Ateneo Society, and Sangguniang Commission on Mental Health. There, he mobilized coalition partnerships with the OGC on initiatives such as the World Mental Health Day and Wellness Fest 2024 to 2025. In the Central Sangguniang, he most recently served as the co-commissioner in the Sangguniang's Commission on Mental Health after serving previous positions in the OP Presidential Support Team and as a co-head of the OVP Leadership Development Division. He is currently taking his specialization in development management, where he has gained experiences in project management, community organizing, participation in action researches, and stakeholder management. In his course, he has managed in fieldwork in sites in Samar, Visayas, Pampanga, and Marikina City, mostly focusing on disaster risk reduction and biodiversity conservation. So again, everyone, Remy, our student.
Okay, let's take a seat, Sir Matt. Actually, we were supposed to have one more speaker, Sir AJ Songla. However, just due to some unforeseen events, he won't be able to join us. So yeah, Sir Matt.
To officially start the conversation, so one of our traditions or one of the activities of the OGC is coffee stations. And whenever we have new guests, we have one regular question. So to Miss Kay and Remy, what's your favorite coffee?
Latte ha. So I'm consistent that way, so it's always that.
Very nice. Remy, what about you?
I don't drink coffee. I like coffee flavored ice cream, that counts.
Yeah, that counts. What about you, Miss Faith? What's your favorite coffee?
Actually, I have a new one right now. I'm taking espresso with sparkling water and a splash of lemon kasi I'm doing intermittent fasting. So, 0 calories pala yun yung sparkling water. Yeah, how about you, Sir Man?
Something new, zero calories. Well, my favorite is actually 3-in-1. That, actually, my favorite is salted caramel. So anything na may caramel, that's really my go-to coffee.
Okay, thank you everyone for sharing your coffee preference. Na pero si Remy doesn't drink coffee. Pero ice cream counts, it's okay. Okay, so I know a lot of people who cannot start their day without drinking their coffee. Is that the same for you? Okay. Yeah, but I guess it's easier to flow through the day with like caffeine in their system. No? So speaking of flow and related to our topic, our theme for this Wellness Fest of Breathe, Balance, and Flow, we're curious what your thoughts are about the concept of flow. First, we have Sent Mihai's concept of flow, right? We're familiar with that. If there are psych students in the audience, are already familiar with that. But personally, what is flow for you?
Okay. So good morning. Thank you very much, Matt and Faith, for the opportunity to be here. It's very nice to be back in Ateneo. I think flow is that really that zone you're in, wherein you're so engrossed in what you're doing, and it's something that triggers your passions or your energies, and you're so happy about it. Na it's worth doing it even though it's difficult, even though you're struggling with it. And it's so nice that you don't notice that time passes or that sometimes the sacrifices are made, but there are sacrifices you voluntarily or choose to do because there's something in it for you. So in a way, you can think about flow as something that makes working hard at something worth doing it.
Alright, I agree and resonate with that a lot. So, flow, I think in my generation, grabe, we hear the word flow sometimes like as a meme, like the flow current ketological state. You see, I see fellow content online, but I also feel that flow is a lot about being engrossed in something. I think my synonym with it is momentum. I think the best way to describe this is an analogy. So sometimes it's hard to really get into the water with things and to maybe like fully immerse yourself, but sometimes you just need one foot in the water and then maybe one leg and then half body and then full body. But then flow is when you're able to swim. And then you're able to swim along with the flow, and it kind of feels natural.
Thank you so much for that. I think it's a really good metaphor. How about you, Sir Matt?
Yeah, parang for me, flow is really being concentrated on what you really want to do. And I resonate with what Ms. Kay mentioned na whenever we do something, this is something that we are passionate about, and we are very willing to hard work on it. And I like also what they mentioned na being in that momentum of working. It reminds us about the meanings of the things that we do, and also with the people that we encounter every day. So we are now talking about, students, the meaning of flow. So siguro one question to throw out to you, what do you think in your everyday experiences, what is your own flow? So, to our guests, have you encountered any challenges or struggles as you are trying to achieve your own state of flow?
Okay, maybe you can go first this time. Struggles with achieving flow. There's a lot of distractions, I'd say. So, number one, there's that external environment of distractions. Then number two, there's also that internal, with like how well you're able to respond to that. I guess starting with external first. Sometimes life just feels a bit overstimulating, no? Like there's just like so many things happening. It could be in it could be in your own personal life, your own G calendar, your own schedule, but then other things as well, like things happening on campus, a lot of student issues that are also probably stressing us out, with things that are not like well consulted with us, with matters of student well-being, or even things happening outside Ateneo, in our country. There's a lot of things that can weigh in on our mind, but then what also really is an important factor is the internal. So that would be like, how well built are we to manage or navigate the external environments? And I think I wouldn't really say one is harder than the other, because it really also depends on the person. At least for me personally, I think navigating the internal is like hard for me sometimes, because it reaches a point sometimes where parang ang daming gagawin. Yung tipong ano na ba yung unahin ko? Even like some people also relate to that, di ba? And yeah, it cascades into bigger struggles when I do not regulate what exact things I should be focusing on, or overthinking on, or not overthinking on. Parang ganun.
Thank you. I can relate to that. No, I have I call it shiny object syndrome. But there's something nice, so sige, I'll do that. I'll join that. I'll take part in that. I'll do all of these things. But we get so excited with being part of so many things that sometimes we don't notice at the end. We have scale, we have quantity, but we don't have the depth. We don't immerse ourselves into it. So I think that's the challenge to flow when you want to do 500 things at once. But realize now I'm a person and I have limits and I have to navigate those limits. So yeah, really staying focused and finding where you want to go is a very important aspect of it.
Yeah, that's right. So challenges can be external. However, most of the time it can also be internal. I guess this is what we're going to try to find out from our conversation today. How to address these challenges and achieve a state of flow amidst heavy workload, tight deadlines, and other things. Since we like mixing things up for our listeners and viewers in coffee stations, we will do something different today. We will be showing keywords, and some of these were coming from Doc Cara's keynote earlier, and some are related to our topic today. So later on, we will flash them, and those will be our springboard for our conversation.
Yes, that's correct. Ayan. So, I think what you shared are very relevant. I can also resonate a lot with what you said. Like, when there are so many things to do, when you have a lot of interest, you get distracted, and then suddenly you don't know where to focus your attention on, and that disrupts that state of flow. But kanina, when we're talking about the concept of flow, that's also what I'm thinking. It's actually a really beautiful space to be in when you're mentally locked in, but also at the same time enjoying what you're doing, not feeling strained by it. Yeah, so in relation to that, we could say that when we're in the state of flow, we're also feeling productive. And earlier, Doc Cara was talking about how probably a lot of us here are here because you are productive people to begin with, and you probably have experienced that state of flow. But siguro just to explore the concept of productivity a bit further, maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. So that's our first keyword. Productivity. Ayan. So can you tell us a little bit about how you interpret this word or your concept of productivity?
Yeah, I think going to the theme of productivity mixed with mental health or mixed with self-compassion, it's not really about output and then making sure that output is always excellent. I consider productivity at my age, after 45 years of existence. So maraming mistakes when I was younger, also pushing myself too hard. But now that I'm in mid-age, medyo relax na konti. I think of productivity more as sometimes there are things you do na okay lang na good enough. Diba? Yung pwede na. And there are things that you do na okay lang, it's excellent. And there are things that you do na okay lang, it's a failure. Because there are failures that are worth celebrating. Not all failures are worth celebrating, but there are failures that are worth celebrating. Like if you fail because you tried something new for the first time, or you failed because you attempted something difficult, or you didn't have the resources, or you didn't have what you knew now then, and you failed then. So productivity, in that sense, is this whole space wherein I did something great. I did something, but I and I did something really badly, pero I got something from that experience. So in that sense, that's I think in the context of balancing productivity with self-compassion. That is the definition we can work on.
So navigating that space of productivity and being intentional about those kinds of spaces. Remy, what about those students?
Yeah, I resonate with that so well. This case says I'm after 45 years, but like I'm at 20 years, and I'm like, yes, that's so true. There's so much about productivity these days that's kind of tied into outputs nga po. Opo, tama. When like you'd ask people, what do you think is the point of getting high grades? And then they would say, oh, it's because I can get a job in the future. And I'm like, tama naman. Pero we don't need to fall into the economic hegemony. Like there's also productivity in the sense that it helps us to really self-actualize and I guess find fulfillment as a person. So there are some days where our days are so full, yung tipong sunod-sunod yung mga meetings, and then we have so much energy that we need to give in a certain org event or studying for a quiz, or maybe there's like a lot of lab tests for psych majors here. And that does count as productive, but it's not really the default. Like productivity can also look like resting. Yeah. I think one of the most striking mental health advice I've ever heard was actually from a former SAMU president. President. She said that if you don't choose a time to rest, your body will choose it for you, and it could choose an inconvenient time. So rest, in that sense, is productive. It's also really a part of who we are, and it can definitely be integrated into what we do or how we spend our time. And it's also really strategic because like if you don't rest, maybe if you don't sleep for like multiple days, and then suddenly your body just breaks down, you have no choice but to listen to that. And productivity can really look like not being controlled by your body, but also having control of your body. Not being controlled by your body, but having control of your body. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you Remy for reminding us about we can also be productive with also taking care of ourselves to rest. So that's very much wonderful. So for our next keyword is procrastination. So Dr. Carla mentioned this a while ago, that we as people, we have experiences of procrastination. So what do you think, guests? What leads people to really be in that spiral of procrastinating, and how can it overcome?
Student perspective, procrastination. Okay, in my younger years, I felt like sa bandang high school, early college, I always felt procrastination was associated with laziness, where I would put off something because I don't want to do it. But you kind of grow up and get a few more years and wonder, what is the root of it? Is it really just laziness, or is there an underlying cause as to maybe why you don't want to do something? Because laziness, not saying that it's not a factor, but it could be too simplistic of a factor sometimes. So, I guess my more reformed understanding of procrastination these days is that it can also really be a response of anxiety. You would put off something if you don't want to do it, and maybe you don't want to do it because you're too scared of making it perfect, or even just starting. Getting that starting point there, like the metaphor earlier, getting one foot in the water. But sometimes we don't think about getting that one foot in the water. We think about swimming na kaagad. Like we already think of like the end point, or like the major goal. But I guess one way that I was personally able to ease myself when I get those thoughts of anxiety is that done is better than perfect. Getting things done is better than perfect. Actually, in development studies, they teach us, there's this concept called the second best policy. If you guys have ever heard of that. Yeah, that means there is the best policy, the most ideal type of intervention that you want to implement in an LGU or in a community. But it's possible that that best project is too perfect, or maybe too costly, or too expensive or too ideal. So sometimes, just the second best policy, the one that's more attainable, the one that, like Ms. Kay said earlier, minsan yung pwede na, minsan okay na yun.
Yeah, so to put it into different words, parang inviting everyone to identify the things that we could be satisfied and fulfilled. So I think fulfillment is very important. So let's do another one.
Yeah, I want to build on that. No? Very nicely said na people think procrastination is sometimes laziness. But from a neurological, from a nervous system standpoint, sometimes we procrastinate because we are oversaturated or we are overwhelmed. And that's the body's way of saying, wait mo na, medyo sobra na eh. So I'm gonna do something else because what's triggering me at the moment, my brain cannot take it, tolerate it, I cannot regulate it. And I think the takeaway, one thing you can add to the toolkit is when you identify yourself as in that zone wherein you're intentionally or unconsciously trying to do something else, then just be gentle with yourself and identify that, yeah, I think I reached a little bit of my limit and I may need to rest or recharge. And sometimes the trigger is not because the task itself is overwhelming, but because tayo, we are perfectionists about how we'd like to do it. So procrastination is not unusual for people who want to do things perfectly. We don't want to start because we want to do it great again, or we don't feel like we're ready because we have the resources. So we want to delay it until we feel we're in that zone where everything can be perfect. But talking to yourself and telling yourself that I can start even if it's not yet fully what I could do about it. Version 1, and then we can make version 1 to version 2 a little later.
Okay, yeah, I'm learning a lot from you guys. Earlier, we were having a conversation with my director, Sir Gary, about procrastination and how it's related to perfectionism. So this explains that thought process a lot, right? And I think in our work as counselors, we encounter students who like bringing up the topic of procrastination. And there's a lot of frustration with the self when they feel like they've been procrastinating and it's becoming a cycle. So I guess connected to what Ms. Kay said, really about self-compassion, looking at ourselves and really understanding why, how come we end up procrastinating sometimes, and figuring out how to address that and giving ourselves that really that compassion to actually pivot in our approach and the strategies that we're using. And then eventually we'll be able to come up with an output that's satisfying enough, right? Meron din kami inside joke ni Sir Jed, yung pwede na to, if you know that meme, never ko yung sinasabi, kailangan perfect. So, yeah, I'm learning a lot from you guys. Okay, so I think some of the keywords that were listed here have been talked about, so probably we'll skip some of them. But the second one, or the third one, actually perfectionism, right? We've talked about that already. Siguro ito na lang, pressure or expectations. So, again, we encounter a lot of students who talk about pressure coming from external sources, but also internally. So what can you say about that?
There's nothing wrong inherently about pressure or expectations. I think you would rather have expectations put upon you than none. Kasi pag wala, it means na there's no, parang challenge to grow. So I think it's a matter of understanding how much pressure is too much pressure and how do you respond to that pressure. I was reflecting about some of the guide questions that I have for this talk, this coffee conversation. One of the questions was, is it really hard to focus nowadays, right? And as I was reflecting about that, I was thinking, actually, it's not necessarily harder, although it could be, but it's because we really are, as we grow up, supposed to stretch our ability to be disciplined, to pay attention. And unless there's pressure to do that, we will not develop that ability. I think ang kailangan lang natin siguro ma-take away is whenever you want to extend yourself, always extend yourself only one step further from where you are currently. Kasi minsan gusto natin baguhin lahat, maging okay lahat. Like, tomorrow I should be able to focus 100% on all the things. But if that's too far to go, the island is too far away, then just think about it muna as, how can I stretch myself to the level of being able to do something that I can't do yet, but I could do if there's a mentor or there's a resource that I have. And then just target that. That's your learning zone. The other zones are your anxiety zones. Masyado siyang malayo. They will trigger you to close down. But if you focus lang muna on, kunyari, I can focus, but I can focus if I use a mindfulness app. Okay, so focus lang on developing how you can focus without the app. Like, how to be independent of that. And then susunod mo na yung the other goals para at least you're growing as you move forward.
I resonate with that so much because sometimes it feels like we know that at some point things get too much, but then the challenge is that where is that point? Like at what point does it become too much? And that the sort of normal pressure of life, the kind that naturally pushes you to become better and level up as a person is definitely really needed. Like we also need that resilience to manage the world because the world doesn't always adjust to us. But super helpful po yung advice na think about extending at least just one step. I think that's where a lot of people would also fail, where maybe the outlook on self-improvement or just improving things in general is too ambitious. Lalo na sa org work. Ako. I mean, in my experience, whether on the doing end or the receiving end, there's always been like that pressure and expectations for certain org deliverables to have such high, or to always hit the mark, like have that high quality. But then I guess one way to really address feeling those pressures is also maybe trying to take a step back. So like, okay, the example I bring up was org events, right? Taking a step back can also look like, alright, maybe the org event wasn't perfect, but it's an org event. At the end of the day, there is no livelihood at stake. Nobody's lives are at stake. It's an org event, and sometimes what's at stake is advocacy information, people's time, maybe aura. But yeah, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's not always that serious. And reminding yourself of that can be really helpful as well. And sorry, just to add one more quick point. I think another word that's also really connected with pressure and expectations is comparison. I've always personally find myself comparing myself rin talaga, no matter where I am. When I was in my freshie year, I was already in Sambu in one of the OVP divisions, but then I found myself comparing myself to the division head. Grabe, ang galing niya talaga, no? I couldn't expect myself to be in that position. Come my third year, I was able to head that very same division, but then sometimes I would find myself comparing myself naman to like our president. Grabe ang galing niya, hindi ko talaga yung magawa. And then right now, I'm already president. And then sometimes I can't look up. I look to the side naman. Whoa, my other president, parang ang galing niya. But parang yung org na to, parang galing. So it's like, in my own personal experience, even if you climb the ladder so high, that feeling or that temptation to compare yourself to others doesn't really seem to stop. So the solution in comparisons is not to keep on climbing the ladder, but to have contentment with where you are. There's also one helpful way I've heard about comparison from like a previous mental health talk. It's actually about upwards and downwards comparisons. So the idea is that comparing yourself to others isn't inherently a bad thing. There is an upwards comparison, which is comparing yourself to someone that you may see as more advanced or like at a further along the journey. And then downwards comparison is the opposite. And there is healthy ways and unhealthy ways to do both of those things. So the healthy way for upwards comparison is to view the person you'd like to be as a roadmap, not as someone to copy, but just an idea to illuminate the path forward. And then for downwards comparison, it's usually related to arrogance because like if somebody fails, then of course you wouldn't want to be happy that they failed, diba? But the healthy way a healthy way of downwards comparison is as an immediate emotional coping mechanism, like short term lang talaga. Like for example, if you fail the quiz, but then you're like, hey, did you fail the quiz? Oh yeah, I failed the quiz. What did you say? Slave. Parang ganun.
Yeah, that's right. No? So two things for what you mentioned, showing up with grace and compassion, and really focusing on the self. And with what Ms. Kay mentioned, this is maybe parang inviting us that pressure is everywhere, acknowledging that pressure is everywhere, and again, finding that grace of navigating those kinds of pressure expectations. Another key word that is very common to everyone, I guess, is failure. We have many forms of failure. In school, what is a form of failure? Failed grades. At home, the negative words from our family members. So to our dear guests, what can you say about how people now navigate?
This is my first time speaking at an event. I have to think, do I start with the thesis statement or end it? So right now, I just want to start with my thesis statement. One of my life philosophies is that it's a very liberating thing to not be afraid of failure. It's very liberating. Because, well, we've all heard about how failure is like a necessary part of the journey. I think if you ask a lot of veteran leaders, what is one thing that they regret in their own journeys? Likely, they're not going to answer the things that they did, but the things that they didn't do. So, yung parang failure in that sense is more of missed opportunity rather than something going wrong. Because things have gone wrong, things will go wrong, and things will always go wrong. And I guess really navigating that and accepting it as part of life is more of a way to really reclaim some sense of control. Because failure is always going to happen, and sometimes it's due to factors that are not in our control. But in the things that we can control, we just do what we can. Even sometimes when you've already maybe failed at something and we don't know what to do. In those times where we don't know what to do, we do what we can. Because sometimes doing what we can is the most, like the one step forward. Diba? Not needing to swim kaagad, but like getting like 1 foot in the water, or like just recovering slowly, gradually. Flow, yes, keywords, flow.
Yeah, I just remember Carol Dweck, who came up with growth mindset. She is encouraging people when there's failure. You go, how exciting! How exciting when there's a failure. Not necessarily because you're happy that things didn't work out, but because you have an opportunity to think of yourself as a scientist, but you do a post-mortem on what happened. And the key there is to not take failure personally. Now, I failed because I'm not good enough, or I'm lazy, or God doesn't like me, or something like that. But to focus on niya, tatlo, effort, strategy, and love-seeking. If there's a failure, ask yourself, did I exert enough effort? If kulang, then maybe next time around, I can exert more effort. Strategy, did I employ the right strategy? If I didn't make it this time, makakapaliit ang approach. And last is self-seeking. So kung tama yung strategy, I exerted effort, did it help pa din? Did I ask for help? Was the resources sufficient? Did I go to the right resource for it? So it's really the ability to, post-mortem autopsy, diba? But you autopsy the failure. You autopsy the failure, and then you figure out, okay, ano ba yung pwede kong i-improve this time around? Because failing is different from being a failure. Diba? You see that in social media, yung mga captures, if you fail, that's an event. Diba? It doesn't necessarily reflect things about you. Even if the failure is because, real talk, diba? Even if the failure is because you are navigating mental health issues at the time, you can be gentle with yourself and say, yeah, because I wasn't well at the time. Just to give a bit of a story, if you look at my resume, I really look performing and impressive. But I took 10 years to finish my thesis here in Ateneo, master's, because I navigated depression during that time. So during that moment, my experience itself would say, I'm the worst person in the world kasi lahat sila PhD na ako, MBA pa din. Thesis lang din yung matapos, di ba? Si Doc Karen na sa bahay. Thesis lang din yung matapos, no? But in the future you, when you're remembering stuff, there will come a time when that wouldn't matter. Like, eventually I graduated, I got my license, I have my practice. So there are things that may look very big as your experience in them. But if you practice reflection on a daily basis, you will realize that over the course of life, when you look back, yeah, that's either what that experience is a major learning event, or it's just this. It wasn't relevant in the bigger scheme of things. So I think the challenge for us is to hold this complexity wherein academics is very important, but that's not really also the most important thing. Mahirap yun in the moment, especially if the expectations come from our parents. But it is very important, but at the end of the day, it's also not the most important. And there's a moment to really circle around those two realities without it being mutually exclusive. Kailangan academics. Hindi. Kailangan ko din mag-work. It's both. And it both sits with you at the same time.
Yeah, so thank you, Steve, for sharing us a part of yourself as to how you navigated thesis during those times. So this is
saying that you should take 10 years to finish. I'm just saying, yes, just saying, gentle as in recall, if it's okay.
But thank you for sharing that. In the spirit of self-disclosure, also took more than 10 years to finish my thesis, semester thesis. So it happens. Siguro those were the best 10 years of my life because I learned a lot in those 10 years before I got to the point I got my license and now I'm ready to take it. Because you learn from those moments that you're not hitting your target, but eventually, with resilience, of course, you find yourself where you are supposed to. And I guess what Radyo also shared about being unafraid of failure is liberating. It's beautiful. Yun. So, siguro, are there first years in the audience? First years, yes, okay. And siguro, one of the things that we hear most of the time for first year students is this is the first time that they experienced failure or failing in an exam, right? And it's really scary, if you think about it, especially if you've never failed any of your exams in high school or before college. But this is very eye-opening, and that it's really part of college life. Yeah. Ayun. Okay, so siguro another thing that we hear often from students would be how to get motivated. Because siguro related also to failure. Once you experience a lot of failures in your life, failed exams, quizzes, recitations that are given like bad feedback by your teachers, you feel demotivated, and that makes a lot of sense. So how do we get motivated?
May kodigo ako. Okay na. So, alright. I guess academic context muna. Sige, show of hands. You guys aren't seen naman at the camera. Pero, who here considers themselves grade conscious? Okay. There's some. I feel a bit in it as well. Because sometimes, there was a time actually when I didn't care as much about grades. I cared more about growth. But, not caring about grades, di naman sa pabigan ako, but it's more of, I kind of lost that sense of being grade conscious. But parang I'm starting to understand it now. Like now, parang in my last sem, a fun fact about me is that there are I'm in my 5th year right now, and there are 2 semesters in my entire college journey where I am really gunning for first honors. That is my very first and my very last. So that's right now. So, parang right now, I'm grade conscious in a sense na I have a target to hit. And I think being grade conscious is something that should be really motivated by an underlying personal motivation. So for me, gunning for first honors is it was a quiet goal of mine. That's not so quiet anymore. Everyone, I haven't even gotten it yet. If I did not get first honors, you guys can laugh at me. Everyone in this room, I give you permission. But actually, the reason why I'm saying it is because it's not just whether or not I get it. For me, I already find motivation in the fact that I want to get it. It isn't inherently a bad thing naman to be grade conscious. It just gets to a point where it consumes you. But grades kasi can also reflect the closest that we can get to feedback on how we perform professionally. And the key word in that is how we perform. So grades indicate how we perform and not our personal worth. Our personal worth isn't always tied to how we perform. And I think really motivating your motivation, directing your motivation towards something that's not an output, but something that is personally meaningful to who you are is much more helpful. So that's why in my sense right now, I mean, I hope I get first honors, but if I don't, then I'll find solace in the fact that I've tried. And being aware of that motivation, or like how you personally make meaning out of things, is a very helpful tool talaga to navigate the pressures and expectations as well.
Yeah, so as a fifth year student, or thank you for showing us the realities of being in college, about how to handle these challenges, and to really find that compassion on the side of these challenges. You still love yourself so much. What about you?
I just want to take a moment right now to just impress I am with Remy and how I love the self-awareness and the self-reflection. I think all of us here are relatively motivated kasi kaya na kayo here because you're productive. So I'm gonna presume there's some coal in the fire. So I think the question is sustaining the motivation over the course of a very hard, maybe 4 or 5 years in college. And this is where the self-awareness, the reflection really matters. Because you always, it's really hard. Studying is hard, meeting deadlines, meeting requirements is hard. But if you approach it as a sprint, na wala kang break to just reflect and say, so what am I getting out of this? What's exciting about this? Like right now, I'm very excited about seeing you and hearing from everyone and learning from everyone. Then it becomes an experience that's a little bit more gentle. Hindi siya yung marathon na kailangan ko tapusin lahat. So there's a moment where you can ask yourself, okay, what's awesome about this? Sabi nga, what am I grateful for? Or because we're in Ateneo, the Ignatian question of where do I see God today moving in my life? Or how is my values being defined by my experience in the work or by the teachers that I meet, the classmates that I have, whether I like them or not. How am I being formed as a human being in all of this? And when you take that moment to always, sa research of reflexivity as a learner, we always reflect where we're coming from. That includes also appreciating our privilege and how our point of view of things are sometimes informed by whether or not we are privileged to be sitting where we are. And when we have that, I think it's very, it makes the motivation something that's able to last over the longer periods of the year.
Yeah, so thank you, Miss Kim, for reminding us that we could really search for motivation. And once we search for that, that's a challenge to embrace sources of motivations. Another experience that we could really talk about is about time management. So from procrastination, from navigating the motivations, to our dear guests, what do you think? Parang in the times right now, social media is there, the our life is giving us a lot of things, we're overstimulated every day. So what do you think, how we could navigate time wisely?
I just share a story. I really had a lot of things to do the week before, and I was navigating also maybe a lot of things that involve emotional reward. Because when we think about our energy and how we manage time, it's not just tasking, it's how much labor is involved in that task. Like relating to others, managing our emotions, controlling how we present ourselves to others, having a moral stance, this all takes energy. And when we manage time, we also have to put into account how much of this energy. And so, ano mo kailangan gawin? Tapos dumating yung statement ni Senator Roy Padilla. That kind of got me so annoyed. And yeah, it triggers a lot of us mental health advocates. And hindi ko napigilan yung sarili ko mag-post, to really join the conversation about it. But after a while, doon ko na realize na, I don't have so much energy and my plate is already full. And while it's very exciting when you're triggered to join the fray, di ba? You really have to take note of how much is our capacity.
Yes.
And so it may say, time management may mean saying no to something that feels really, really important in the moment. But if you understand you don't have the bandwidth for it, bandwidth is not just time. Diba? Emotional bandwidth, physical strength, physical capacity, mental concentration. If you don't have the bandwidth for it, you may have to intentionally prioritize what's important for you. So, to my regret, the other subsequent statements he made that I really wanted to join, but I restrained myself. So, I think time management is really saying no when it's not important, and then understanding limited capacity. Because time is the same, it's 24 hours every day. And your tasks will always have, there will only be more things to do. So you have to really remember that it's not proportionate. You can't do everything, you have to choose.
Yeah. So mindfully stepping back from those things that might consume.
Yes, here. I was actually really about to say that we talk a lot about time management, but maybe not enough about energy management, because it's also definitely a factor, especially when it comes to navigating your personal context. So, for example, like I found in my early academic career that, my conception was that you have to be the most productive in the morning. And okay, neurologically, yes, neurologically that does have some basis, but there's also the personal context. I found myself to be more of an afternoon or night person. So, sometimes it also depends rin talaga on like, when talaga ba yung peak energy hours mo. That's also something to consider. So, very beautifully said. I actually don't have much to add to that. So, I'll instead share a story as well. So, one of the things I put in my bio note was coordinating World Mental Health Day last school year. So, it's a line in the bio note now, but the war story that was. But okay, DLDR, short version. World Mental Health Day is on October 10 every year. And the three orgs, Commission on Mental Health, Ateneo Peers, Ateneo Psyche, we decided to collab on an event on October 10, very late, like it was like at end of September, so like we had like 10 days to prepare for it. And as the main coordinator at the time, I really needed to focus so much into getting that done, coordinating like different orgs. And that was so hard. Tapos on the ACAD side naman, there was an exam from my development perspectives in politics class. So it's like a poli exam. Tapos hulaan niyo kung kailan. When was that exam? October 10? Di naman, October 11. So I really could not find myself the time to really study for it before October 10. So I remember that morning, the morning of October 11, the exam was at 11 a.m. I woke up at 8 a.m. to study for it. And there were 9 readings I had to go through. So okay, I tried to get into my flow state, my flow technological flow state. And I tried doing the first reading. Okay, I breezed through it. Done. I took a short break. Second reading. Okay, I took a short break during 5 minutes. Okay, I finished it. Okay na. Third reading. I took a 5-minute break, and then 5 minutes became 10 minutes, 10 minutes became 20. At some point, I just closed the laptop. I entered the exam that morning not performing well, and I didn't get a high grade in. Yeah. That's the end of the story. But relating it really to time management, there is definitely that approach. From what I shared, I had very little time, right? And because nagkasabay talaga yung event at yung exam ko, like almost the same day. But one thing to also consider and give myself grace with is that there really is like limited energy that we have. So I guess relating that down to the wider experiences of being a student. So maybe we've heard that if you don't have time, make time. And there is some value in that advice. But in making time, it also really depends on our own personal capacities. And that's really where self-compassion has to come in. Because we can't always make time, but the energy is something that we're more in control of. So if we don't have time, tapos we also don't have energy, what's left? Yeah, that's one important thing to consider.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really insightful message. No? It's not just time management per se, but also energy management. We don't talk about that. Yeah. But siguro, my question for Rem is, have you prepared for your exam later?
Alam niyo guys, I was supposed to have a long quiz 2 hours ago. But then I told my prof and then she was like, oh, okay, the event ends at 11:30. Sige, 12 p.m. See you. So yeah, during Doc Cara's talk, I kind of multitasked because I was studying the quiz later. So yeah, I think we can cook. We're not fully cooked. We can cook later.
Is this time management for you?
Yeah. Actually, to really add to that, a lot of time management may also fall into work-life integration. So a common term here is work-life balance, but then work-life integration is kind of a different approach to it, where you don't have like strict boundaries. Maybe you don't have strict working hours. For some people, it works. It's good for them. But for other people, maybe you need to be a bit more flexible. So parang, example yun, like I don't consider this right now as work. But the exam is work. The exam later is work. So even though I am at this event right now, I find myself studying a bit for the exam later. So it's just part of also navigating things as well. Now sometimes we can't have a balance with things. We really take it in break as well.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And because our last keyword is actually balance. So,
foreshadowing.
Yes. So what you say about since you take conversations on finding that balance, starting from Dr. season up until now. So I guess if you have maybe 5 words about finding your balance, or if you can, how do we make sense of this journey?
Siguro as a final message also. I really like this quotation. I forgot who it's from, so credit them. The balance is not outside. The balance is within you. So you can be, the metaphor is yung calm in the middle of the storm. Like if it's for your storm, you didn't see chaotic. If you're in the middle, it's always calm in the middle. So, finding that balance means that you have an anchor, even if the deadlines are pressing on you, even if the feedback wasn't nice, even if there's war, right now, the context natin, and it's devastating. No? So, where do you find that sense of, yeah, I'm already an anchor? And that give you suggestions for it's something help you figure out, right? Where you find that, whether that's your spirituality or your family or you might want to kick your sheep. So you find where that is, and you decide how much of that pressure you want to let come in, and how much one pays that come in. Nasa sa'yo yung talagang may consequence na question. But kung natin ito, your lab is in front of you, not outside. You decide when you open that, and then you decide where you want to say, wait, not here, I want to take 5 minutes to myself to really just enjoy something else, rather than all of this is happening around. And so when you think about balance, let's not wait until things get okay, because they probably are, like I always feel, in my mind of speaking, when we can find it to go a bit more.
Yeah, agree. A lot of, I think one of the most important life skills to learn is balance. Like there's like so much need to balance everything. So I just spoke about work-life integration, but then at some point in talaga you like need that balance and that boundary to like say no to things. And I guess the challenge in achieving that balance is also to not allow yourself to be consumed by all of these external things. So there's this. Okay, one thing that Ateneo really teaches us is to be a person for others, right? And it was a very motivating phase for me. In development studies, the ones that is there naman is to not just be a person for others, but to be a person with others. So not just before them, but with them. And these are both very excellent phases. They've gotten me through a lot as well. But my own personal nuance on that is, first and foremost, before we are persons for others, before we are persons with others, we are persons. And that's it. We are persons. We already have that internal baseline value, and you don't need to do anything in order to earn that value. You're already someone who's worth enough hours of sleep. You're someone who's worth eating on time, and you're someone who's worth that self-care. Because the value, our value lies not in what we can give, but in who we are. And sometimes we are the best persons to look out for ourselves and for who we are. It's a very important thing to never forget.
Yes, thank you so much. It's a really good bottom line, right? Like, our values is here. It's not something that we get from validation because we've been productive, but it's really something that is within us. Okay, so we're almost coming to a close. But before that, siguro I have a question for Radyo. Since you're representing the student body, do you have like any questions as a student and take advantage of this here? As our expert, do you have any questions that we haven't really touched on?
Well, from the times I occasionally ask friends as well on the main challenges of being a student, I guess it's also the fact that we're not just students. So I was actually able to get anonymous input from one of my board members and peers. Shout out if you're watching right now. That input was essentially about how there's also so much emotional stress in things that don't directly affect us. Lalo na like sa political landscape ng Pilipinas. Sometimes just being Filipino can be hard. Diba? So I guess my question is, because we're a generation that faces these wider problems, no? There's the political landscape that we never asked for. There's the risk of an economic insecurity. Ano pa? There's the climate crisis. There's the digital age. The digital age that parang exploits our insecurities or our attention spans. So, given these wider systems of oppression po, how can we navigate that as individuals?
I'm currently reading this book called Trauma Stewardship. Meaning how can we hold all of this trauma? Kasi the generation today is exposed to knowing everything that's happening around. So we were holding all of that pain. I think this is very important that we can tolerably zoom in and zoom out. That's what's in our control. We can't control what's happening around, but we can control when we're going to look at the big picture and when we are going to look at the kindness that we can do every day to make our ripple. Kindness is a ripple, kindness is not a big people. So when it's time to be an advocate, but always let's zoom out and put your voice in, do something to change the world. You will be the ones to change the world, I'm pretty sure. But when it's time to zoom in and focus down on what one can control in your immediate system, your family, for example, be kind to your it's hard to change the world, but be kind to our parents. Sometimes they get dysregulated too, like me. So you can do that. And then maybe we can find a way to find the middle ground. That being said, if you feel it's too much, you can disengage from hearing information that you know is not helping you. Like if you're starting to see your mental go down, you can ask yourself, is this going on social media or reading the news really working for me at this time? Because if it's not, it's alright. You don't have to be there. And I had this lecture on normal psychology. I was asked by one of the participants, normal po ba kung ano ng Facebook? The world is such that we feel that's an odd day. But actually, you can disengage. That's really your choice. You can choose to focus on what energizes you rather than looking at the day. But yes, I rather think that there can be a very difficult consequences of that world and all that's going on with the person.
That's right. So reminding us about the value of kindness, no? Kindness to our thoughts, to our feelings, to our behaviors, kindness to the people, and also kindness to ourselves. So with that being said, let's give our hands to our guests today, audience. So thank you so much, Sherry and Miss Kay, for sharing us a lot of their experiences and thoughts about our questions.
All right, that was a really insightful conversation. I really love how we have heard actual lived experiences of our student representative, Remy. And being a student leader, I imagine that he had to do, or he has to do so many things. He has a lot on his plate. And it's sometimes a struggle to balance that with protecting his well-being. So it's really nice to hear also that it's not just students who experience that, but even professionals like Miss Kay, and even us, right? We also share that struggle. But in that conversation, I really love how we are able to really tackle different concepts related to productivity and mental health and how to protect our well-being. And balancing that actually. Yeah. So how about you, Sir Matt?
Yeah, that's right. And it's very nice that we had this kind of format for our conversations. And I think this is something that we could continue doing for our next episodes. And to our listeners, thanks for staying with us. We hope that we can bring with us, practice, and imbibe what we learned from this episode. You might also want to share this learning with a friend who you think might need to hear this.
And you might also want to follow us on Spotify to be updated on our new episodes. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/ogcc.hed, to catch our announcements about OGC's programs and activities. To close this episode, again, I am State.
I am Sir Matt. Until our next episode, may you stay in your flow, where your work feels meaningful, your rest feels earned, and your coffee or whatever keeps you going meets you exactly where you are. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Wellness Wednesdays. Every week, we'll bring you stories, tips, and conversations that keep your mind, body, and spirit in check. Wellness that truly speaks to you.
For updates and replays of this episode, you can always check the social media accounts of Radio Katipunan.
This has been Wellness Wednesdays, wellness that speaks to you from the body, mind to mind. See you next time.
Bye!
We all want to live healthier in mind, body, and spirit. But where do we start? Sometimes all it takes is a good conversation. Tune in to Wellness Wednesdays on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM. Together with experts, inspiring guests, and real stories, we explore tips you can actually use. From managing stress, to eating better, to finding balance in a busy world. Because here, we believe wellness isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. So join us, and let's make every Wednesday a step toward your healthiest self. Wellness Wednesdays, wellness that speaks to you. From the body, mind to might. Every Wednesday on Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.
Voice of the Blue Eagle, kami di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at damo. At sa labas ng kwenta, ibibida The voice of the Blue Eagle, the voice of the Blue Eagle.
Tawag ni Ignacio, Katipunero, sugat mo todos at tayo, uno at uno. Di pa nga blue and white, only fly.
Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan. The voice of the Blue Eagle.
To listen to music that uplifts the soul, follow JustCom PH on Spotify and JustCom Music on YouTube. Our music is also available on iTunes and Deezer.